Okay guys, today I wanted just to do a little bit of a quick intro kind of explaining what I'm going to be attempting today, and I knew that if I tried to do it during the process of the video that I wasn't going to be able to explain what I was doing and also kind of tell you where my plan was kind of coming from. So if you follow Scrapbook Generation on pretty much anything, their blog, their Facebook, you probably know that Allison does this thing every once in a while called Sketch Week, where she provides a free sketch and then over the next couple days she shows you how she adapts that sketch. Usually there's one that's pretty close to the actual sketch, one that is kind of a little bit different, and then a lot of times she'll take a 2-page and change it into a 1-page or vice versa. So I went through and saved the photos and just kind of put it on a document, and then I went into, you do have to go into the store and actually put the free sketches into your cart, but then when you go through like the payment screen, you just verify your address and then it says, you know, that there's no payment, and it takes you down to a download link. So I went ahead and did that. So I've got both. So this will end up in my sketch binder and this will end up in kind of like a different inspiration binder. I just wanted to be able to have like everything on one page instead of having to go back to her blog. Her blog goes into really good details about sort of how she makes changes to her sketches, why she makes changes, you know, that type of thing. So I am down to the last section of my family photos, and I don't really think that I could get 2 separate double page layouts out of it. Plus, when I went down to like sit down and edit my photos, so basically I have the photos that our photographer took of me with the kids and then my husband with the kids. And for whatever reason, there was a lot more of me with the kids, and there was only like 4 or 5 of him with the kids, and they were basically the same image, just a little bit different expressions. So I decided, you know what? I'm getting to the point where I'm getting bored, so I'm just going to shove it all in one layout. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just do like photos of my husband with like dad, and then photos of me, mom. And it reminded me of this layout that Allison had posted where she did kind of this, you know, one kid got his hair dyed pink, one kid got his hair dyed green. She did both of it on one layout, but still was able to design-wise keep the things separate but also together. So this was kind of in the back of my mind that I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to get that to work. So I just spent 20 minutes doing some math in Photoshop to figure out what sizes my photos needed to be. So I'm in the middle of printing those. So basically I'm going to do my husband on the left, me on the right, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do this diagonal strip thing because my paper is getting very low. And where her photo area is basically 6 by 9, mine is going to end up being 9 by like 9, I think. No. No, 9 by 8, I think. So I'm going to have like a bigger chunk right here. So basically I'm going to be able to just tuck in little like 1-2 inch size strips. So if I only have like a little bit of a pattern, I can cut it and kind of hide that there's a big gap here instead of doing full length strips behind here. And I did like that on her blog she shared that basically she took like printer paper and put it on there first and then transfer that over to her layout. So I think I'm gonna do that as well. And then instead of it being, obviously I don't have this many patterns, I think what I'm gonna try to do is try to put more of the like navy and darker and like heavier patterns on the side with my husband, and then the lighter patterns on the side with me. Hoping that works. I am gonna allow myself to bring in this scrap that I have left over from the heart layout, which I'm not sure what order you guys will see this in, so if this is new to you, shocker, gave myself an extra piece of paper. So I think I can get, you know, a couple strips out of this to be able to put on my husband's side of the layout, and then maybe throw in the other side on my side. We'll see. If it gets to the point that I feel like I don't have enough paper to sort of span the area that I'm trying to span, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull out my bag of scrap paper and kind of allow myself to steal from that because it's scraps and I don't really ever go pull them out. So I feel like that's going to be my one sheet. And then I think I'm just going to kind of go through the leftover embellishments that aren't a house or a chair and make myself like little clusters. And I might even maybe pull out like the Polaroid frames to kind of fill in some of the bigger spaces. And I don't know, I might go through my dies, maybe pull out some different ones and kind of go from there. Or maybe I'll do hearts. I don't know. We'll see. At this point, I'm just praying that I have enough paper to make this work. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of like an explanation as far as where I'm going in case the actual process video is just a hot mess. I didn't want to try to be explaining that while I'm on fast forward and kind of running out of time. So I'm gonna go finish printing my photos and start cutting some paper strips out of the stuff that I've already got scraps of, which I'm kind of excited for because I do have a lot of things like this that I can easily cut this in half and literally just tuck these little pieces. Like it doesn't need to be a full strip. So I'm excited to be able to kind of get some of this stuff used up in here. So, okay, stop jabbering, start working. Okay, everybody, I do feel like I need to put a disclaimer in this video. If you are a basic gray fan, lover, just fanatic about basic gray and how they are no longer available, please don't come for me after this video. I was out of sort of just cheap basic white cardstock, and I didn't want to dip into my Copic friendly cardstock. I didn't want to waste textured cardstock on something like this that I'm just using to hold my photos and give myself a border. So I used the back of some basic gray pattern paper from a pad. So please don't come for me. Please don't leave hate for me down below. I'm sorry. I picked the patterns I didn't like. So I just felt like I had to mention that, especially because of this clip right here. The first time I stole paper from the pad, I wasn't filming, so I just thought, oh, nobody's gonna notice. And then as I was editing, I saw this and I thought, someone's gonna be so mad that I did that. But I needed just some basic white cardstock for my photo collages, which I'll talk about that here in a second, and for the paper strips. So like I shared in the beginning, I was heavily inspired by Allison Davis's layout that she had shared a while ago for sketch week number 5. And let me see how I can explain this. When I am doing a layout with a lot of photos and they are going to be grouped together into sort of this large photo collage type area, it can start to feel a little flat or just like a little photo album style, and which is fine. If that's the mood that I'm in, then that's what I go with. But sometimes when I have a large photo block like that, it does start to feel flat or maybe a little boring in my opinion. So in those instances is when I will do sort of those above and beyond techniques of things in the background. And so in this instance, it was going to be a lot of paper strips, a lot of cutting, a lot of interest with pattern mixing going on behind the photos. And for me, I enjoy that because it is a good balance between this heavy block of photos and then you kind of have a little bit more fun with the small space that you have left over when you are using so many photos. This did take me a while. Like I said, I used the backside of some pattern papers to build all these paper strips on top of. And because my photo blocks are so large and they are bigger than the one that Allison shared on her original sketch and her original sample, I knew that I was only going to have a small area that I really needed to have full-size strips or even just longer length strips to be able to cover that. Everywhere else, I knew that I was going to get away with even 1-inch size pieces because along the top and bottom of my photos, I had about 1.25 inches maybe that I needed to cover with strips. So I did get a ton out of the scraps that I have left in this collection. If you are new to my channel or this is the first video that you're watching from me, this is layout number 8 that I have done using the same Simple Stories collection kit, and it's one of their, I think they call it an essentials collection kit, where you get the pattern papers, a 12x12 sticker sheet, a pack of die cuts, and a 6x12 pack of chipboard. Out of those 8 layouts, I've done 7 double page layouts and 1 single page layout, and I still have supplies from this line. I am getting a little bit tired of it, but I'm still inspired. I haven't really run out of ideas yet, so I'm still working through it. Pretty much after, say, 4 layouts, I kind of reset my kit, get another game plan in line. So with this being layout number 8, I'm going to be sharing the 4 layouts, so layouts 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then I will share what I have left of my supplies and how I'm moving forward from there. As far as assembly for this, here you can see that I took a pencil and I traced around my photo area so that I wasn't going to be wasting time and supplies in covering areas that I did not need to. And you can see it's probably less than an inch that I've got above and below my photos. So what I tried to do was mimic her sample where she was showing sort of 2 different colorways of the same theme or the same topic. Now, had I been using my stash, I could have easily gone with masculine colors on one side and feminine colors on the other, but I'm really trying to work my way through this collection kit. So what I did was within that collection and within the scraps that I have left, I kind of dubbed certain patterns as masculine and certain patterns as feminine, and put, the darker, heavier, or just anything that was blue and maybe more yellow over on the left for the photos with my husband. And then anything that was like a lighter color, had more pinks, that type of thing, I was putting on the right for my side of the layout. I did not keep anything, like I didn't keep it in order of pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. I literally just slapped down what was going to work. And I basically focused on using the smallest scraps that I had above and below my photos. And then I made sure that I wasn't cutting into anything that was longer, because the farther out I get to the edge of the layout, I'm going to need longer pieces to stretch across that area over there. It's pretty much going to look like a hot mess while I'm doing it. I only filmed me doing this process on the left because it did take a while. At some point, I apologize, at some point you will see my cell phone up at the top of the screen. I was basically home alone, cutting paper, gluing paper, having an adult beverage, and watching a hockey game because I was home alone and I could do whatever I wanted. So don't hate me for the phone being in the frame. Please don't hate me for chopping up some basic gray. Just don't hate me, okay? Be kind. So anyways, the whole time I'm doing this process, I am bringing in my photos and just kind of double checking that everything is covered and I'm not going to have like little pieces of white showing through. So here I've got the entire left side done, and then I'm working on just making sure that I'm matching up the stuff that's going to go over the middle of the layout and over that gutter. So it's going to be a couple of those masculine patterns are going to bleed over into the right, which basically was what I was looking at when I saw Allison's layout. And it was a long process, but honestly, it was kind of relaxing. It would definitely be easier if you were using full size 12-inch strips, because you wouldn't be worried about trying to make sure that you're lining them up. As I went across, somehow it worked out on the left side, the more masculine side, but when I went to do the feminine side of the layout, my strips ended up not lining up and meeting up. It was almost like I had an extra one either on the top or bottom, but I checked it multiple times and could not figure out what the problem was. So I ended up just kind of layering a couple strips and hoping that nobody noticed that they didn't line up. But I will probably do this sketch again because it is really fun. It does use up a ton of scraps. I kind of want to do one that's more of like a rainbow theme going from one side to the other. But I would for sure use full 12-inch strips. And it was really satisfying to use up some of these small pieces. Some of them I even cut from the cut apart cards where, the printed image doesn't go all the way to the edge of the paper. So I was able to get like some plain aqua color, and then there was one that was like a cream and a brown freckle sprinkly type one. So I was able to squeeze in a couple extra different colors and patterns in there from getting creative with the cut aparts. And then when I finished this up, I was chatting with some scrappy friends, and I sent them my progress, like, hey, I finally got done. And I don't know if they were serious or if they were kidding, but they were like, yeah, you should totally stitch on your layout. Well, at this point, I've had a couple adult beverages. I'm tired. I'm still home alone. Hockey game's still on. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to stitch on this thing. It was it took me a while to get started, and I think it's just because it's been a while since I've stitched on a layout. And I pulled out this stitching ruler that I've had forever, and I never even noticed, like I just pulled it off. Never even noticed that it's tacky and stuck to a like protective film that you're supposed to take off, use it, and then like put back on the protective film. Never even noticed, because anytime I've ever done stitching, I just winged it and used a ruler and hoped that I was evenly spacing out my holes. This thing was super convenient, super easy once I figured out that it was actually tacky and that you needed to take that thing off. So what I did was I just poked holes around my photo collages. I just went not quite a quarter of an inch away. I just wanted to have kind of a added element between the papers on the background and my large photo collages without necessarily adding a lot of bulk. So stitching was a good suggestion. I'm just not sure if they were trying to torture me or if they were being constructive. But it honestly, it didn't take that long. I actually enjoy stitching. I am in the middle of a giant cross stitch project that I've been working on for like 2 or 3 years. Paper's just kind of a whole other animal. And I think it's because when you're stitching on fabric, you can stitch two-handed and you kind of get into a groove. Paper, no, paper you actually have to like flip it over, find the hole, put the needle through, flip it over, find the hole, put the needle through. Like you can't just kind of fly through it by the feel of it. But it was relaxing. It was fun. I basically just did one edge of the photo, tied off my string, rethreaded it, did another run of it. And unfortunately, like I said, this is kind of a boring part of a process video, but I did want to leave it in because typically I'll get a like, well, how did you actually do that? Or how long did it take you? And it really didn't take me that long. I would say maybe 20 minutes to do, both pages all the way around. I think it's a little more time consuming or a little slower if you're stitching like round shapes, like if you were doing the edge of like punch circles, or if you were doing or you were stitching a title onto the background and you're doing like letters and you're doing smaller stitches or anything with a curve, then yeah, that's gonna take a little bit more time. But the finished product on things like that are so interesting to look at. And stitching is one of those things that I just don't really remember to do. I think it's just not like a tool or a supply that I necessarily keep out with everything else. It's sort of tucked away in a drawer as like I don't know, not a fancy supply, but yeah, it's tucked away and it's not necessarily like at the forefront of my mind. So I do kind of want to try to include it a little bit more. Those are like the layouts that I always stop and look at and kind of keep looking at when I'm scrolling through like Instagram or Facebook and stuff, where you kind of stop and you're like, why do I keep coming back and looking at this person's layout? And it's usually, oh, they've got stitching or they've got, things that kind of add to the layout without it being so like in your face and product heavy. I think I get more drawn towards things that are maybe more technique heavy. Now, my original intention was to kind of mimic or go with what Allison had shown on her sample, where it was sort of these large embellished corners on either side of the page. I over the course of multiple days, kept sitting down and trying to figure out what was going to work for me. I went through all the chipboard and the die cuts, and then honestly, it wasn't working for me. So I went with what I would normally do when I follow a sketch, and it's typically I will follow it to a certain point, and then I'll just kind of do my own thing. So the last day I came back and was just like, I want to get this done. I need it to I need to move along in my process, and I need to just kind of not be overthinking things. So I chose to go simple. There's so much going on in the background that it just made more sense for me to go simple. Everything that I was putting on top of all of these little strips was just getting lost. So I took this large journaling piece from the die cut pack, cut it in half to be able to have it on either side. And then I just found I had 2 packs of thickers that were basically the same size, same font. One was a mint green, one was a bright pink, and just kind of went from there. So I just kept the stuff on my side of the layout to being pink, and I used a phrase sticker. I'm still obsessed with the Lawn Fawn heart dies and kind of making my own faux chipboard. So I used some of those. And then both sides I used, I think it's from the chipboard pack, was I just had 2 floral pieces left over, and one looked more masculine and one looked more feminine. So it just kind of ended up working out that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go simple. It's sort of the only thing that's making sense when I sort of hold it over this busy background. And it is in line, I think, more with my personal style. I think next time if I do this sketch again, I would probably just pull from my stash and have more options, and then maybe do like an intricate silhouette die cut or something, and just kind of have fun and maybe go a little bit more simple with the strips in the background. And that's pretty much it for my page. So I hope that this gave you a little bit of inspiration as far as using lots of photos in your layout. Here's a detailed shot of the stitching and the 2 clusters, and the pattern paper strips you can see a lot better in these photos. So I am very thankful to have been invited to this hop, and I hope you guys enjoyed my video. And please check the video description box below for links to the other videos.